Guys, NFL Combine happening in Indianapolis now. Anthony Broom covers Michigan for the Wolverine on 3. Also on X at Anthony T. Broom. Joins us now. Anthony, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Such a feels like, I think Jim Harbaugh said it feels like Schembechler Hall out there with 18 Michigan players out there. What's it like, Anthony? It feels like everywhere you turn there's a Michigan player.
Yeah, I mean, they're everywhere. I mean, there's 18 guys, like you said. When we got here, we actually got in a day late. First thing we see when we walked in was a couple of former Michigan staffers in Chargers gear. So right off the bat, I mean, Michigan's pretty familiar with the city of Indianapolis by now, with how things have gone the last few years. But yeah, I mean, it does sort of feel that way. And I think for some of these guys, it does add a layer of comfort to, what is a pretty stressful week. I mean, it's a job fair. It's a workout. It's, you're getting grilled by teams. You're being pushed to your physical limit. So having those guys to kind of lean on and, walk past each other in the hallways, and it does add a layer of familiarity to it. And yeah, I think a lot of NFL teams are going to get some good players out of this as well.
How much do you think J.J. McCarthy can help himself legitimately by getting in and interviewing with these teams, and of course, what's going to happen on the field when he throws?
Yeah, this is kind of the event where, when we saw him declare for the draft, we're like, okay, well, the production, was what it was. And it's not like it really was a knock against him. I mean, he was extremely efficient and put up numbers within the confines of that Michigan offense. But, this was always kind of the few-day stretch that you circled to where, okay, like knowing that he's a guy that will interview extremely well, a team-first guy, someone who has always been about the bigger picture, never about himself. We figured those are boxes he'll check. And then athletically, we know he's a good athlete. He's got a, very talented arm. He's accurate. He can make plays off script. So, this is huge for him, given that, I think everyone's pretty much in lockstep that you can sort of lock in those top three quarterbacks as Caleb Williams and Drake May and Jaden Daniels in whatever order you want to do it. But with those guys here and not throwing, it kind of does, give him that spotlight as maybe that next best guy that'll be working out on Saturday afternoon. So I really do think, he's not going to run the 40. He's not going to do, some of the athletic testing. It sounds like he has a hamstring thing going on. But if he throws well, I really do think that you might be locking this guy in as a potential top 10 pick. I think he's someone that teams might even maneuver for to make that happen. But don't let the production and don't let Michigan's offense fool you. This is a guy that these teams are much higher on than a lot of draft Twitter or those types of people are.
Anthony Broom, great to talk to you, man. It's been a minute. Lock in 11 for J.J. McCarthy. I'm telling you, man, him backing up Kirk Cousins for a year, because I don't think he'll make the 2 years. That's my pick. But look, man, we talk about the interview process so much. I think Dan Campbell's talked about the interview process. Ryan Ermanni has brought up the interview process. And all the Michigan guys will interview well, because look who their coach was, look what type of men they are. But with that said, man, look, mass calls at the Underworld Olympics, that's what it is. It's the Underworld Olympics, and you got to perform. You look at what DJ Turner did a couple years ago. DJ Turner's performance at the Combine got him drafted in the first round. Who are some Michigan Wolverines that, in your estimation, are going to perform really well?
Yeah, I think one of them already has, in Chris Jenkins, who I thought had a really nice day yesterday. He'll be a guy to keep an eye on. A.J. Barner works out today. And I know, again, talk about the production or lack thereof. He's a guy similar to, Luke Schoonmaker, didn't have great production at Michigan, came to the Combine last year, measured in, really well, worked out extremely well, showed off his athleticism. I think A.J. Barner can be a guy that maybe doesn't make a leap into the second round, but is someone that might get drafted a lot earlier than people might expect. Mikey Sainristil has already kind of kicked off a day where, minutes before I hopped on here with you guys, he just did a 40-inch vertical jump at 5'9", 183. So he's someone that I think,
that's called
if he has a great day, that's someone that I think we're looking at, stock improving as well. So, definitely a handful of those guys. I think you can put JJ in that category as well, like we said. A couple guys didn't work out yesterday. A couple guys might not do as much, but Roman Wilson, Blake Corum, they'll work out tomorrow with J.J. McCarthy as well. And like I said, I think Roman Wilson said today that he's planning on running somewhere in the 4.2s. Like a 4.3 type of day would be disappointing for him. So I don't know how realistic that is, but these guys are ready to roll, and I think most of them will show out pretty well.
Yeah, I didn't see 4.2 speed, but at the same time, they didn't necessarily throw the ball down the field, so there was nothing to see, if you will, and I definitely believe in number one. I don't know why. You bring up Blake Corum. Here's an interesting question about him. The year before last, he has a knee, has surgery. He comes back last year. The year before that, he has an ankle. He has surgery. Misses. He comes back at the end of that season. 4 years, a lot of carries, 2 injuries, 2 not serious injuries, but 1 serious injury and 1 kind of decent injury. How is that going to bode for him being a running back in a league that already does not value that position a lot? What do you think can that hinder him? Or that I'm trying to think of how to say this. Do you think that will hinder him in this draft process?
Yeah, that's a position where you're already inherently kind of fighting an uphill battle because of how the league values or doesn't value running backs. That, he's a guy where you talk, it's kind of where the production discussion goes the other way. I mean, look at his Michigan career, extremely productive, but that doesn't necessarily translate into what teams are always looking for, right? And he does have those knee injuries. And again, I thought Michigan did a really good job keeping him fresh this year. I think that, by the end of the season, especially, he looked the most like his vintage self that he has. So I think that's a positive for him going into this event. But he's a guy that, you would think would be, just based on what we watched over the last, 4 years, would be one of the first running backs off the board. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe slide just a little bit because of the workload concerns, because he's a little bit undersized, and because, obviously the injuries on his resume. But again, if he goes out and shows out and he wants to also show that he can be more of a threat to catch the ball out of the backfield, that could be something that keeps his stock fairly high. And I still think it is. He's probably a round 3, round 4 type of guy right now. But the athletic testing, this is going to be huge for him. Maybe the most consequential of any of the guys here at the Combine.
Hey, Ant, what's the buzz around Jim Harbaugh? I see him sitting in the stands. He's doing his own timer. He's talking to his players, hugging up on them. They picked number 5, man. Who knows what he's going to do? But what's the buzz around with Jim Harbaugh?
Yeah, he's extremely in his element, and I think that we've always seen anytime there's any type sort of football showcase or scouting thing, whether it was the satellite camp at Michigan, whether it's the NFL Combine now. He is extremely comfortable with that whole setup and that whole ordeal. So again, it's we haven't really seen him since we've been here. I know he's been on TV with the stopwatch, and again, when you look at that number 5 pick, I don't know that any Michigan guys fit that bill. Obviously, They don't need a quarterback. I think you're probably we were talking about this on the drive down. Who would be that Michigan guy that maybe he pounds the table for? Yeah. I think Blake Corum might be that guy, in the 2nd, 3rd round. Maybe it's Mikey Sainer still. Maybe it's, it's Chris Jenkins. We know that the way he wants to build a football team, they want to be physical. They want to be dominant up front on both lines of scrimmage. And he, again, it's a weird thing where he feels like he's probably where he should be. And that's not to say he was overqualified to coach at Michigan, but he's an NFL head coach, and Michigan was really fortunate to have him for the 9 years that they did, and to go out on a high note like that, and then to come here and be back in your element. I think it's kind of a dream scenario for him, really.
No doubt.
Hey, Anthony, I want to ask you a question, and I'm not even sure there's an answer to this yet, because I feel like we are going in a completely new era of college football. But in years past, if you had a school drop 18 guys off at the NFL Combine, if I'm a high school player, I'm going to play at that school. What impact does having 18 guys at an NFL Combine in 1 year have on today's high school athlete or today's recruit? Or is everything now just about who can pay me the most money? Will Sharon Moore try to continue to have that transformational, not transactional experience in recruiting? How do you read this situation?
Yeah, I mean, certainly when you have the 18 guys there, I mean, that's historic. No one's ever, sent that level of guys. So immediately that's one of the best recruiting pitches you could have. So that's something that works in their favor. In terms of Sharon and NIL, I do think they're prioritizing it. I think that they really are working. They've hired a GM to kind of oversee the football operations, the transfer portal, and making some hires in the recruiting department. So I think they do understand, there can be a difference in a happy medium between, paying guys just to come or making sure you take care of your guys once they're here and once they perform, that you have an infrastructure, to make sure that those guys are taken care of. And, just with NIL in general, I think we are so far, out of, the toothpaste is so far out of the tube, to where I don't know that donor-funded NIL is something that's sustainable. I think we're already kind of seeing the cracks in that model. So, again, we are on the speeding freight train, I think, to profit sharing, to maybe player contracts with universities, and that's something that has to be incumbent upon the conferences. It has to be something the schools take on. But in terms of the here and now, I do think that Sharon will be a little more aggressive on the recruiting trail. I think Michigan will have probably a better NIL place around him because, quite frankly, they have to. But make no mistake about it, they won this national title that they did with player development and making sure that they had, the right guys. And the right guys might be 3-star guys, but, their ability to coach those guys up. And again, there are guys all over this combine, guys that'll be taken fairly early in this draft from this program that, didn't have those high marks on the recruiting trail. And it's, you got to make sure you develop, you got to make sure you retain, you got to make sure you take care of the guys that are there. And I think that's kind of what the key is going to continue to be for them.
Anthony, of the 18 players at the combine, how many of them get drafted? And more than anything, really, how many do you think are in the top 4 rounds? How many of the 18 get picked in the first 4 rounds?
Yeah, I'll take that one first. I think they have a core group of guys in J.J. McCarthy, Roman Wilson, Blake Corum, Chris Jenkins, Mikey Sainristel, that you're probably – I think those are maybe your first 3 rounds, the cluster of those guys. And then from there, it's, a lot of it will be depending on the meetings, the testing that takes place this week. If I had to put a number on it, again, some of the lower-ranked offensive linemen maybe get camp invites, but I'm going to say maybe I'll go with 15. I think they will get to 15. I think that feels, again, the funny thing is you go through that list and, there's a lot of pretty logical candidates to get drafted. So it just goes to show, with all the bluster, with all the talk about, the signs, Michigan cheated to win, they won a national title because they have 18 NFL caliber players at the combine and even more of them that won't be here until next year. So to me, that's I think what all of it goes to show to me.
No doubt about it. Hey, last question for you from me, and then I know Maz has one, Anthony. This J.J. McCarthy situation I'm so intrigued by. Is there any question right now that he's at least the clear number 4 quarterback in this draft, ahead of maybe a Bo Nix, ahead of a Michael Penix, ahead of a Spencer Rattler? I almost said Spencer Raxter because Spencer Raxter's in the back, but I meant Spencer Rattler.
Spencer ain't getting drafted.
But is he at least a clear 4? Because there's a story today out of New York, out of Sportsnet New York, saying that the Giants are definitely going to take a quarterback at number 6. So could you, if not trade up to get one of their top 3 guys? So you could have essentially 4 quarterbacks going in the top 6. Would JJ be that number 4?
I could see it, honestly. And I saw something, I'm sorry, the writer's name escapes me, but there was something in The Athletic that I had just read where the NFL is much higher on J.J. McCarthy than a lot of, I'll say us as a media collective, but not necessarily me, but, he might be in play as early as number 2, and that doesn't mean he's the odds-on favorite. Might not even mean he's the 3rd choice there, but I do think that when they meet with this guy and they turn on the film, I do think that it's pretty clear, if you're someone that has, Williams, May, Daniels in that clear top 3, I don't think there's any question that J.J. McCarthy would be at the top of that next tier. It just seems like as he's declared and people have turned on the film, and really his stock has gone up even without really doing much interviews or athletic testing. And this is a huge weekend for him. But I do, you're not hearing that same conversation about Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. So to me, I think he's right now the clear number 4 with maybe top 2 upside. We'll see what happens. I don't know that I believe that, but that's what people are saying here in Indianapolis.
Hey, Ant, last one from me. As excited as I was as a Michigan fan to finally see them win a true national championship game, not something that's been voted on or anything like that. They earned it. And then to see your head coach leave and a new coach take over, a guy that worked under Harbaugh, but a guy I really don't know a lot about. What's your take on this next coming year or two ahead for Michigan?
Yeah, well, this year certainly, a bit of a transitional year, but at the same time, most of that defense comes back. You've got, defensive tackles in Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham. They could be first-round picks next year. Derek Moore's a very talented edge rusher, so it's going to look different. And again, it'll be interesting to see the wrinkles that Wink Martindale brings to that defense, because it's not going to look the same. But if they can get that quarterback situation figured out, I think you can talk yourself into them still being in the mix or being a playoff team. Certainly I think right now, if I had to put a number on it, I could see them going 9-3, maybe 8-4. I just still think that schedule is just so rough.
Okay, so it's back to normal then, is what you're telling me.
Well, it could be. They have the chance to be really good, but there's so much change. That schedule is so difficult. Anyone that was giving them grief about their non-conference schedule or what they've played the last few years, water finds its level this year in a big way. So we'll see. I think that things will be stable, but at the same time, it's when you lose that many players and the best coach that maybe you've ever had, there's going to be a natural drop-off, and it's going to look different for sure.
Thanks, Anthony.
My man, thanks so much, Anthony. We appreciate your stuff. We'll check you out on X on the Wolverine on 3 as well. Covers Michigan for the fellas there, the Wolverine on 3. Anthony Broome. We appreciate you, bud.
Always a pleasure.
All right, appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
You got it.